Hello, beautiful people. My name is Emma.
And I'm MC.
And we're your hosts of the G-Forces podcast. So clearly we're in a different location. It is Thanksgiving, so we are trying to film in a location that people are not going to bother us in.
Yeah, we have a packed house. I feel like we changed locations last year around the same time. Like, holidays for a lot of people are filled with travel, and they're all over the place. So, as you can tell, we're making the best with what we can.
Yeah, so just bear with us.
Yes.
Probably for the next, 2 episodes, this episode and next episode are going to be like this. But it is what it is. So today, this past weekend, was the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It was an interesting one. Vegas had some crazy weather.
Yeah, I mean, it had completely unprecedented amounts of rain that they don't typically get. I also just feel like every year I complain about it, but the timing sucks. The timing of this whole weekend sucks. So I feel so discombobulated, and I do know that there are people around the world in certain territories that love the timing of this one, and it benefits them, and I love that for you. I love that you can get that. But for us, it is just, I don't like the timing at all.
Well, yes, I agree. My thing is that, do we have races in Europe that are really weird times? For specific reasons.
Well, I think my problem is it's just really weird times for the drivers too. Like, it feels significantly later than anything else. I know that there are other night races, but I don't feel like they're
But the other night races are for a reason. The other night races, like Singapore, is because it's so hot in Singapore that you cannot race during the daytime. Yeah. Vegas
gets hot.
It gets hot, but not any hotter than some of the races that they do in the summertime.
Yeah. So it definitely, in terms of the race, I still don't really love this weekend. But in terms of the actual action on the course and what this means for the Drivers' Championship, everything's up in the air.
Yeah, we truly, at this point in time, have no idea who's going to win the Drivers' Championship, and there are 2 races left. So to say that feels a little crazy.
Yeah. It is anyone's game, and I feel like we've been saying that for episodes.
Yeah, really Lando, Max, or Oscar could win. Mm-hmm. It really just depends on how the next 2 races go.
Yeah.
And if it's next is what, Qatar, I think? Mm-hmm. And if it's Qatar, 2 years ago Qatar, we have no idea. And that's a sprint race, usually.
Yeah, I think there is one more sprint race.
I think that's Qatar left.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy next 2 races.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, and it's a triple header too, so just really banging them out. Mm-hmm. Right? I think it's a triple header. Yeah.
Technically, yeah. I think so.
That tracks to me. Okay, well, we're going to get into it.
So the official race name for this weekend is very similar to what we've seen this year, but the Formula 1 Heineken Las Vegas Grand Prix 2025. So the official track name for this street circuit is the Las Vegas Strip Circuit. Now, this one is fairly different than I think any of the other street courses. I think typically street courses for the weekend shut down, no one can drive on them. Vegas, due to the elements of Vegas, the workers, the amount of people who need to get to the strip, which is where it runs down, it opens up during the day. So during the day, it opens up for civilian cars.
Which is what their excuse has been as to why they've had it at night, because, it's so busy during the day that they need cars to be able to drive on it during the day.
Listen, you're in the middle of a freaking desert. That is one of the most developed cities in terms of construction projects. Just build a track.
You also did choose to have a
race here. So the official track name is Las Vegas Strip Circuit. This is now the 3rd year of the Grand Prix. So the first year that it was held was in 2023. They do 50 laps around this circuit, with one lap being 6.201 kilometers or 3.853 miles. So doing that 50 times comes out to a race distance of 309.958 kilometers or 190.735 miles. So the former lap record was placed last year by Lando Norris in his McLaren. He did it in 1 minute and 34.876 seconds. It was broken this year by Max Verstappen. He obviously did it in his Red Bull, and he did a lap in over a second faster, 1 minute and 33.365 seconds. So, that's the new lap record. They're doing 17 turns on this track. And
doesn't feel like it, though.
Doesn't feel like it.
I feel like it's just a box.
Yeah. And then amongst the 17 turns along the whole track, there are 2 DRS zones. So DRS detection zone 1 is right after turn 2. Activation starts after turn 4 in the straight leading to turn 5. DRS detection zone 2 is right after turn 13, and activation is a little further up in the straight. So that is the track. They did have some issues that caused red flags and delays. They tend to always do for like circumstances since it's like the regular road. If you'll remember last year or 2 years ago, I can't remember, there was a whole manhole incident.
Apparently they were, so at this race, apparently it's free to watch Nevada's, what is it? Their street cams, like their traffic cameras. And so I saw somebody watching one, and it looked like they were trying to fix a manhole at some point during the weekend.
Yeah, they were doing work around the practices because there was concerns like of the road. But I think it also just goes to show you that like it's just not, I don't know.
It does blow my mind, the whole manhole situation that happened a couple of years ago, because like, I mean, the manhole covers, they're heavy as hell.
Yeah, and knowing the fact that the force of the car driving over it can rip it out of the floor is insane. So, yeah, for those that aren't aware of what we're talking about, in the past, Carlos Sainz had an incident where basically, right?
It was Carlos.
Where basically, like, the manhole affected his car, and it was in a way that, like, if it was, like, inches closer, like, it could have got, like,
it, like, almost shot through his car, I'm pretty sure.
But basically, they ended up having to go through the circuit and weld all of the manhole covers for the weekend so that this doesn't happen. Again, just the side effects of a street circuit that is regularly used. It's not a FIA regulated track. So, yeah, that's Vegas.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into practice now.
Practice is eventful, but not really. I feel like weather was probably the biggest issue, and just temperature. Again, like we said, Vegas is dealing with unprecedented amounts of rain leading up to the weekend, and I had seen like a TikTok video made by like a Vegas resident where she basically explained that Vegas typically doesn't get rain, and when they do, it's like
one
day. I think by the time everyone was getting in town for the Grand Prix, they were on day like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure for that city, I mean, it's in the middle of the desert. Like, there's no drainage infrastructure to my knowledge. Or if there is, it's very, minuscule. So quite a few people in P1 were testing the track limits with slides from a few and the runoff areas being used. Now, we typically see this with Vegas because of how cold it is. Vegas gets really cold. It's not a climate that I feel like we're typically in. And so I feel like the drivers tend to have a lot more issues with their tires and the learning curve and sliding.
I don't think they remember from years, at least the drivers, I think they almost forget that, like, because it is a desert, it gets really cold at night, and, like, you're going to have issues with your tires.
Yeah. So Max and Charles were the 2 names that were at the top for most of the session. And then, obviously, this is just practice, so things shuffled up around a bit. And Yuki ended up putting a strong lap in, topping his teammate, which, I don't know, I always like to see, especially with the season that Yuki's been handed. Yeah. So the top 3 times for that session was Charles, Alex Albon, and Yuki Tsunoda. The Williams were showing a really strong performance. I think just some bad luck during the race and other issues ended up screwing over Alex specifically. Yeah. So Moving on to P2, this was when the rain started to really affect practice sessions, and the track was wet. Red flags were lifted twice during this session, and the biggest issue, which I think this might have caused like a second red flag, the biggest issue in my opinion was that during the session at the very end, Charles Leclerc had to pull over due to a gearbox issue. And basically his engineer got on the radio and was like, pull over, do not shift, like whatever happened, it wasn't good. Luckily this was right at the very end, I think with like 5 minutes left.
I wonder if it was similar to Brazil last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it might just be like end of the season. Parts are starting to fall apart, Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. So the top 3 times for practice session 2 was Lando in first, Kimi in second, and Charles in third.
Kimi had a really good weekend.
He did.
Ish.
Yeah, like
he had
definitely
moments of bad, but like overall as a whole, I would say it was a good
qualifying
outcome. Was his bad
was
spot.
his worst part, but where he ended up on the other side of the race was shocking.
Yeah.
For where he qualified. So moving on to P3, rain hit the track during the latter half of the session, so a lot of the drivers were debating in the middle of the session when the right time was to switch tires. And then honestly, that was really the highlight of it, was tire conversations. Nothing else really happened. So the top 3 times for that session was George, Max, and Alex. Again, we get to the end of the season, practice sessions get pretty basic and repetitive.
I would say as a whole, like, this is the first year. I mean, we've only been watching the sport for 2 years. This is our 3rd season. This is the first year where I've really been quite bored by practice. Like, I feel like in the past, there's been a lot more, like, going on. But I wonder if it's because of the regulation changes that, like, they're not making huge upgrades, like, stuff like that they're not needing to really do tons in practice other than, like, get used to a few things.
I think I want to see how it is next season, because I agree. I think the regulation changes, there's just not as many risks being taken.
No, not at all.
I think it's just... I mean, at this point in the season, I would be shocked if any team is even thinking about this car anymore, like, legitimately. Like, they're just trying to get to the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
But, yeah. So, that's practice.
All right, we're going to get into quali.
Qualifying was mess. That's really all I can say about it. None of the practice sessions could really prepare the teams for the weather and for the rain that the drivers were dealing with.
Yeah.
Now, we're not talking, was it Brazil last year, or what was it?
Brazil last year where, like, they couldn't see.
Where they couldn't see, and
I mean, it wasn't far from it.
It was close.
I don't think we've seen in our now almost 3 years of watching F1, I don't think we've seen them actually do a qualifying with fully wet tires on.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes we've seen inters, maybe.
Yeah.
But, like, when it comes to quali, they've never been on wet tires. So that was insane.
So that's a good segue. So as Emma said, some people at the beginning of the session were really going out on the intermediates, and they were trying to see if they could, like, test to not get to the full wets. But there was so much rain that eventually most of the people that were on the intermediates, I think almost everyone, went in, pitted, and switched the full wets.
Yeah, I think like Lando had gone out on inters, but Oscar immediately went out in the wets, and Lando went in to switch to the wets.
Yeah, it was pretty apparent just watching.
Yeah.
Early on, George was the top time. I feel like George has kind of been like a solid third, in my opinion, so it's not surprising.
He's always third.
He's a solid third.
Or if he's not third, he's fourth, and then there's a disqualification.
Yeah. Towards the end of the session, Alex Albon ended up clipping the wall, and this just tore up his front right of the car. He was able...
Sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the crashes that happened during this qualifying session, or like hits or whatever you want to call it, really just seemed like it was weather and hydroplaning.
Yeah.
Like, if the weather was fine, I don't think any of these crashes would have happened.
No.
Which is the sad part, because some of these ruined people's races.
Yeah. Alex was able to limp back to the pit, but he was ultimately knocked out. So the big shock of the session was Lewis Hamilton. So for the first time since I believe 2009, a Ferrari was knocked out in Q1.
And Kimi was also knocked out in Q1, right?
Kimi was knocked out. So yeah, Alex, Kimi, Gabby, Yuki, and Lewis were the names. Kimi, I feel like we've seen Kimi in the bottom before. Not
but the reason
often.
why I mentioned Kimi with Lewis is just because Kimi was Lewis's replacement, and so
a Mercedes and a Ferrari are both at the bottom. It's not
for Lewis and his replacement to be knocked out. It's a little crazy.
But it was definitely kind of a rough streak that feels like it's never ending with Lewis.
Yeah, I think we need next year's car. But we say that every year with Ferrari. Yeah. We're always like, oh, we need, or even with Lewis, we're like, oh, we just need next year's car. We just need next year's car.
I think we do. We just need next year's car.
If I'm saying that again next year, I don't know.
Okay, so I literally have nothing of value for qualifying for session 2. Really, conditions were still rough. Everyone stayed on the wets, and nothing major really happened. It was just a matter of getting a time on the board and getting that lap done. Yeah. So knocked out was, I feel like, very typical Q2 names. Nico Hulkenberg, Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Ollie Behrman, and Franco Colapinto. Honestly, quite a lot of them end up knocked out in Q1 this season. So
it was surprising to see Franco in Q2, to be honest. And normally he's knocked out in Q1.
Which I don't think we mentioned. It was confirmed that he has that Alpine spot. So
yeah, I don't know if we mentioned that. We might have mentioned it last episode. I can't remember.
Yeah. So moving on to Q3, rain finally started to lighten up a little bit, but the track was honestly still very wet. Carlos was showing quite an incredible performance during qualifying, topping the time charts for a hot second. At that point, me and Emma obviously were like, end the session. This was then taken by Lando, and then Max took it from Lando. Oscar didn't have a bad showing, but was just not able to get as fast a time in. And I think with the way his timing worked out and his final lap, I think he kind of missed that opportunity to get in.
I remember them saying that it looked like he had started a final
and he pulled out.
Lap and he pulled out, so he must have made a mistake.
Yeah.
So
that it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So the top 10 times and the top 10 for the grid is Lando in first, Max in second, Carlos in third, George in fourth, Oscar in fifth, Liam in sixth, Fernando in seventh, Isaac in eighth, Charles in ninth, and Pierre in 10th. So that was your qualifying. I feel like everything was pretty on paper,
pretty standard for the season.
Standard, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, let's get into the race. The start of the race was honestly very bold of Lando. I think this has happened a few times where Lando tries to beat Max at his own game off the start this year, and he ultimately fails. And he failed again. I don't really. This one was a little more aggressive than other things that he's done. He just went full blown straight into Max, but then he had to go wide to avoid hitting him, and then ultimately allowed Max to just pass him. And George also passed him too because of it, because Lando had to recover.
It was shocking to say the least. I know that we've seen Lando try to kind of assert a sort of
dominance
move. Okay, that you can say that, but I think he knows Max's MO at this point.
Yeah.
But what he did, was just so extreme that I for sure was based off of the angle when they start it and they show you the front of the cars and it's not a super high angle. I for sure was oh my God, they're about to crash into each other.
That would have been crazy. That would have been a crazy start to the race if they had crashed.
It was not what I was expecting at all. It just came out of left field.
Not what I would have recommended to Lando.
So in turn, like Emma said, he does this overreach, trying to move into Max's area. And because of that,
is to overcompensate.
Going into the first turn, he ends up driving off the track.
Which then allows Max and George to pass him. And so now Lando is in P3. And then at this point, we do see a yellow flag come out, and it looked like on the map that Lance Stroll was out because his little green dot was there, not moving at all. And this was just the beginning of lap 2. There was also, didn't it look like there was like some sort of like kerfuffle that happened? Yes, there was. There was something else that happened at the start further back. I think it was Gabby. He had completely misjudged the first turn on lap 1. And who did he hit? It
Lance.
So that's why Lance was out.
So Lance and Gabby ended up having contact, which basically ended both of their races. Gabby was also given a 5-place grid penalty for the next race because of this.
Oh, I didn't see that.
He was blamed for the crash and basically...
So are we giving penalties for first turns now? Lap 1?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it seems like... And that's the thing. I don't remember if it was in lap 1 or lap 2.
It was lap 1. But it was off the start because I remember seeing all the cars kind of spin out because it didn't just affect them. It affected like a few other cars.
Well, and I just feel so bad because, his home race didn't work out in his favor. This isn't. He is guaranteed next year, but I just feel like Gabby Bortoletto can't really catch a break right now.
My question is, if they gave him a 5-place grid penalty for something he did, yes, it was very clearly he misjudged the first turn and hit Lance. But in years past, and even this year, if something happens in that first turn of lap 1, it's considered a racing incident.
Yeah, I mean... It's the FIA. They don't make any sense. So.
I know we go on about this every episode, but it still makes no sense.
And they've done it, recently, so I'm not shocked.
But other ones that they've done, it's been on like restarts or something. Like Oscars was on a restart, but this was just your basic start.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, annoying. Lewis and Ollie were both up by 6 at this point. So they had a really great start, I think, because of the whole Gabby Land situation. And then lap 2, we actually see that Liam Lawson has wing damage and is kind of tumbling down the order, and he has to make it back into the pits.
It was a bit of a benefit for Oscar because in the start, I think Oscar was passed by the Racing Bulls. So when Liam was... because he had to go into the pits, it basically was like an easy movement further up the grid for Oscar.
Well, yeah, and it was a lap 2, a VSC came out because of the whole land situation, because of the debris and everything else. And it actually turns out that Liam Lawson had crashed directly into Oscar on lap 1, turn 1, which definitely slowed Oscar down as well. I don't think that Liam got a penalty for it, though.
No, not that I could tell. I don't remember him getting one.
So make that make sense, FIA.
Yeah.
Gabby has to get a penalty, but not Liam? Anyways, probably because it didn't end Oscar's race, which I think is still inconsistent. The crash is a crash, whether it ends someone's race or not.
I think, unfortunately, we're not really going to understand the way the FIA works.
No, we never
will.
They
make much logic.
No. Lap 4, the VSC finally ended. And then lap 6, so at this point, George is only 0.8 seconds from Max. So he is definitely trying to pass Max. And then at this point, we're also finding out that Gabby did DNF. They put it on the screen. Alex is only about 0.6 behind Lewis, and then Lewis is only 0.6 behind Ocon. So there was a little bit of a DRS train on lap 9 from P8 through P13.
Yeah.
So we had a good chunk of people that were really up each other's butts the whole time, which makes for good racing-ish. It depends on how the DRS is on these tracks, which we won't see next year.
Yeah. RIP DRS.
I'm actually quite sad.
We're in our final moments with it, guys. Enjoy it while it lasts.
I wonder if they'll ever bring it back.
Oh, probably.
I fear it will be like after 1 year.
I fear we're going to have it for... We're not going to have it next year. In 2027,
we're going to get it.
We're reintroducing... Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, lap 10, Oscar the commentators are saying that Oscar needs to pick up the pace and get closer to Isaac if he doesn't want to defend from Charles, because Charles was gaining on him. Charles was right behind him, and he was like 1.4 seconds away, and then he was like 1.1 seconds away. And so it did look like Oscar was like, okay, time to pick it up. And then after like a couple of laps, he was only like 0.5 seconds away from Isaac, which I'll get to that in a second. Lap 11, Charles says he's pushing like an animal in the radio. I think he was really determined to try to pass Oscar. That did not happen at this point. Isaac is asking his race engineer if he can be aggressive, which I don't know why he's asking that.
There were just some weird conversations, I feel like, going on with race engineers this weekend where it was just, I mean, at one point Isaac was like, stop yelling at me, and his engineer wasn't. Like, I just feel like everyone was being, we're at the end of the season.
I think they're also overtired. It seemed like a lot of them were overtired this
weekend. They haven't seen the sun in 4 days.
That is true.
Like, of course they're tired.
That is true. Especially with daylight savings times. It's probably dark, like, the moment that they wake up there.
Yeah, and with all the travel that they've had recently, so.
Okay, lap 12, Oscar's finally in DRS range of Isaac, so Oscar did pick it up. And then Charles actually passes Oscar when he messes up, and it opened up space for him. Oscar had one other opportunity like this throughout the race, and he made sure that it didn't happen again. But I think that this is... Again, I still think that this is a different Oscar than what we saw earlier this season.
Yeah, he's definitely not in the same level of confidence.
I don't think his mental state is the same. His mindset's not the same.
Yeah, I think that there's I don't want to say desperation, but I feel like we're not having the same level of confidence that we were.
I almost wonder if it's the pressure of being in this position, because I feel like it's similar to Lando last year, where like he was really panicked towards the end of the season because he was like, I need to try to get more points. I need to try to beat Max.
I'm sure all of the drama with, like, and it was funny because F1 TV has their own podcast where basically they interview for a whole 45-minute session drivers and important people from the industry, and they interviewed Oscar. And one of the questions, like recently, it was like 2 episodes ago, so within the last 2 weeks, one of the questions was like, how is your relationship with your teammate? Like, is it better off or worse? And he was like, actually, like, I think it's the best, because like we're both fighting for the same thing. Like, we're both just like trying to be the best we can. And so like, I obviously think the media makes it almost so much more dramatic, but I think the pressure, I mean, just the pressure you put on yourself to perform in this scenario is probably something like we can't even fathom, especially when, yes, you're dependent on the team, but it's such an individual sport at this point where like everything comes down to Oscar.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm sure the stress is up the wazoo.
Yeah, I agree. Lap 14, Charles passes Isaac for P5. Then we also, in that same lap, find out that Alex, he goes into pit. It looks like he's missing his end plate due to a contact between him and Lewis earlier on in the race. That was his first pit stop in one lap. Then at the next lap, he also goes in. I'll get back to that in just a second. This is when we find out that Kimi gets a 5-second penalty due to a false start. It looked like the tire just started rotating.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't move.
It was confusing because it happened out of all the false starts that we've seen, I feel like 5 or 6 at this point.
Well, and usually like they move forward just a little bit.
It didn't move. It was so minuscule that like I feel like I still want to rewatch a clip. But
because when they told him, he was like, "What?" Where normally other times they're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
There's no denying it.
Yeah.
Okay, so lap 15, Alex went into the pit again, and this time it took him 11.3 seconds at pit stop. And so from here on out, we knew this is not going to be a good race for Alex.
Well,
Something's wrong.
I think Alex had received damage from when him and Lewis.
I think, he had received damage on his front end plate, and I think also more of his front wing, which could have also caused floor damage as well.
Yeah.
I think it was just Alex has not had a good run the last couple of races.
Well, didn't he get a 5-second? He got
a 5-second penalty later on in the race.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense. Lap 16, the BSC recovers debris from Alex's car because there was debris everywhere. And then finally the green flag goes up again, like pretty quickly. Lap 16 again, Piastri finally passes Hadjar. Then lap 18, we see George pit. What is it? Hulkenberg, he gets past Behrman at this point. And then also at this point, there was a lot of different people who were the fastest lap at some point throughout the race. So
but
at one point, it was Alex. One point, it was Lando. At some points, it was like Kimi. It was all over the place.
Max kept handing him out, though. Max kept taking him from everyone.
At this point, I wrote that Lando had just gotten the fastest lap.
Yeah.
Lap 18, we see kind of like the first round of the pits. Most people only pitted once throughout this race. So lap 18, we see Behrman go in. We also find out now that Alex gets a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision, which I don't remember if we got a replay of the race, but I don't think it made sense that he caused a collision.
It was between him and Lewis, if I'm remembering correctly.
We might have gotten a replay, and I remember being like, huh?
And yeah, it was so late, guys. I can't remember.
It was like 10:30, and for us, that's
late.
Way past my bedtime.
But yeah, I can't remember. I just remember it was between him and Lewis.
So. I remember being very confused why he got this time penalty.
But
I mean, he's already suffering enough in the pit. Why do we need to make it worse?
Sometimes I feel like the FIA just likes to
they love to make people suffer.
Yeah.
George is working his way up the grid. He passed Hadjar at this point. Lap 22, Oscar goes into the pit, and he came out at P10, which isn't the worst spot, but it's not the best. But I think there was a bunch of people in front of him who had not pitted yet, so he was going to be okay. And it actually worked out for him in his favor because I'm pretty sure Carlos, when he pitted, he came out behind him and Carlos was in front of him when Oscar had originally pitted. So it worked out in his favor. Lap 23, Lando goes into the pit and he comes out P4. Yeah, this is when Carlos, he pits, and then he comes out actually right in front of Oscar, and Oscar ends up passing him right away because Carlos had not been able to heat up his tires yet, so it was a good call on McLaren for getting Oscar in when they did, not the best call for Williams for getting Carlos in when they did.
Yeah.
Lando at this point was told to do his own race because I think he was really concerned about where other people were, and they were like, you just need to focus on your own race. Lap 27, Max is the new race leader. Okay, so just so you guys know, when we watched the race, we started it, and then at lap 27, we were all like, we got to go to bed. We need to pause this. We're going to finish this in the morning. We were falling asleep.
We were like, we're not even paying attention.
Okay, we put it on this morning from lap 27 on. Nothing happened.
It was like everything that happened from lap 27 to lap 50 was just standard. Really nothing happened. It was after the race that like a whole slew of shit happened.
Which we'll get to in our final thoughts. But I'll just continue reading. I barely have any notes after this because literally nothing happens. So Oscar got a fastest lap at this point. Lap 30, Lewis finally went into pit. Lap 34, Lando passed George. So Lando, I believe at this point was in second place. Lando is trying to catch Max, and then Max is actually told by GP that Lando is like trying everything possible to catch up. I think it was like I remember thinking it was like a funny radio.
Yeah, he was like, Max, from what I'm hearing, Lando's being told to go and get you. Like, something on those lines.
Lap 37, Alex Albon DNFs. So he did, I believe, serve his 5-second penalty in the race so that he didn't have to serve it next time. But yeah, I think there was enough damage to his car that it was done for. It was not a good race for him. The moment that he got that damage,
it was done.
His race was over.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be better next time. Fingers crossed. Lap 37, Oscar is in DRS range of Kimi. Oscar was doing a pretty great job at working his way up the grid. I will give it to him.
And that's the thing. I feel like he he didn't ever falter during the race. Like, I feel like it was pretty...
Except for the one moment with Charles. That's it.
Yeah.
Kimi, Oscar, and Charles are in a DRS train at this point. And this is when Oscar could have potentially opened up for Charles to pass him again, but Oscar was pretty good about it. Max is saying that Lando is nursing some sort of issue, and then all of a sudden in the last lap, we see Lando just dropping time. Not in a good way, like slowing down, dropping time.
Yeah.
And it looked like Lando had dropped about 18 seconds, had an 18-second slowdown in the last lap. And we still don't really know what it was. We don't know if it was a brake issue. He was told to just, like, coast.
Yeah.
Into the rest of the lap.
So he did.
Yeah, so he did. He ended up finishing P2. Didn't stay there for long, but he finished P2.
So the top three was Max,
Lando, George.
Then it went Kimi, Oscar, Charles. So they go on the podium, they do the podium, everything. And I don't know when it was announced because we were asleep at this point. But after the podium, it's announced that the FIA is investigating McLaren.
Yeah. Both cars. Which, for both cars to be investigated is pretty rare, I'd say. Usually it's one car from the team, or, like, I feel like it's usually the top three are being investigated and then, like, random others.
Yeah. We've seen a double disqualification in this manner, I believe, with Lewis and Charles.
Yeah, but they were on different teams.
But, I don't know if I want to get into it.
Yeah, just mention it.
But basically, we've gone over it before, but the floorboard that underneath the car has a minimum thickness that it needs to be 9 millimeters or thicker. Basically, during the race, if it is scraped, if it's too low to the ground, you just set up. If it's under 9 millimeters, it's deemed an instant disqualification.
Yeah, and it starts to erode throughout the race because the car will kind of drag on the ground, and that's why you'll see sparks. And it's technically called the skid plate or skid board.
So, because of this, because they were underneath that 9 millimeters, both cars, they have been disqualified.
Well, and so Vegas is similar to Monza in a sense that it is a track that you want your car really low to the ground, as low as you possibly can, because it's such a fast track and there's so many straights that in order to maximize the speed, you need to be as low to the ground as possible. Yeah. And they were just, it was a setup issue because both cars had measured the same.
Yeah. Apparently when all this happened, immediately McLaren kind of shut down, wasn't really speaking to the media. They came out with a team statement, basically apologizing to both drivers, because what this does to the Drivers' Championship is...
puts it all at risk.
Oscar and Max now have 0 points between the two. They are tied for second, with Lando, I believe, 30 points ahead.
Not even. I think he's like 26.
Something like that. We have 2 races left, and this might truthfully be one of the biggest blunders. If Max passes Lando, this might be one of the biggest Drivers' Championship blunders in this sport's history.
If they fumble this,
we'll
talk about it forever.
I also wonder if this gets fumbled, the relationship with McLaren with the two drivers, how it's going to be.
Oh, I think if they fumble this, the way that they treat the Constructors' Championship next year, the drivers are not going to be as willing to for the team.
But I also wonder if it's going to be I'm going to do a year because I signed a contract and maybe I'll start talking around.
I wonder.
Yeah, because some of the things have been just straight strategy, but,
it's been BS.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's get into our final thoughts. So, because they were disqualified, the new finishing top 3 were Max, P1, P2, George, P3, Kimi. So now this is Kimi's 3rd podium in his rookie season and his 2nd in a row, technically.
Yeah.
So a little crazy. Kind of wish we'd gotten to see him on the podium, but totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, again, I am curious to see the direction that this kind of puts everything. I feel like, I mean, we have a race coming up this weekend, so there's not going to be a very quick turnaround time. So you know that there's going to be pretty interesting media comments made by anyone, because you know the media is going to be asking all the drivers about it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's definitely putting things into a tizzy. I really think we think we've seen it all, and then we get to the next race weekend and something else happens. So yeah, I
didn't think that this could happen this late in the season where McLaren would fumble it like this.
I would love to be a fly on the wall for Max, because I would just love to see his
reaction.
reaction.
Just know that Max, when he found that out, he started laughing. It was it was most likely similar to when he was like, oh, he's letting him pass because he had a bad pit stop.
Yeah. So it's just going to be an interesting end. I think this is...
But I also think it goes to show how good of a driver Max is. And as somebody who did not love Max in the past, I think his personality online just irritated me. But I really like him now. I like we said a couple episodes ago, I just don't think I like who's winning when they're winning. They usually irritate me. But I think if Max ends up winning this driver's championship, like, he's already considered one of the greatest. Like, I think for sure after this, he is solidified. And yeah, because, I mean...
If people are arguing that he wasn't one of the best, if not the best, I feel like at this point, if he does win this, even if he doesn't, if he comes in second or third, I think he's proven how much he can do.
I mean, he was able to get the car that literally everybody said is horrendous to the end and potentially win a championship in it when he was 100 points behind halfway through the season.
So, it'll be interesting.
For sure. Okay. Now, one last thing, actually. F1 Academy, their season has officially ended. And Dorian Pin has won the championship for this year, which is super exciting. This is her second year in F1 Academy, so she wasn't going to be able to continue after this point anyways. I'm very interested to see where she goes next year, because she's done a lot outside of F1 Academy, so I'd be intrigued to see if she goes to F2 next year.
Yeah, F3, F2. I mean, she's participated in Le Mans, so I'd be curious to see if she goes the WEC route. But she's an incredible driver. She has a lot of support from Mercedes, who is her team sponsor. So yeah, I think she's one of those people that
keep your eye on.
Very like Susie, where I could see her being like the next woman in an F1 car.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Okay, so this upcoming race weekend is in Qatar. We are probably not going to have a Get Ready episode. Things have been really crazy this whole season.
We don't need to make an excuse. It's Thanksgiving. We're not going to
No, I'm just saying, this whole season's been a really crazy season for us. But especially with it being Thanksgiving, we're not going to have a Get Ready episode. We will have a Get Ready episode for the last race of the season.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I think that's everything. Make sure to check out our Instagram, TikTok, socials, everything. Make sure to follow, like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.